Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. I just want to introduce myself before I get along with this. My name is Arber Frakulli. I'm a fourth year medical student at MUA, and I've already finished my core clerkships, which are internal medicine, surgery, OBGYN, pediatrics, as well as psychiatry last year. Bounced around from place to place, which I'll get into after. I'm currently in upstate New York finishing up ambulatory medicine. I'm on my last couple of days. Actually, I'll be done on Friday. But a little bit of background about myself. I'm originally from Albania. I grew up in Greece while my dad was studying there at the time. And I spent the majority of my life in Greece. And then around age 9, I believe, in 99, I moved to Toronto, Canada, which I spent the majority of my life since. I went to York University. I studied biology. And to be honest, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, to like pursue later on with biology. I didn't know whether to switch to another field or to continue maybe further education within biology. But there was always part of me that kind of wanted to try medicine. There was always these talks at home that, I wanted to become a doctor and all that stuff. So I kind of tried. I wrote the MCAT. I applied to a whole bunch of Canadian programs. Unfortunately, that didn't really work out. So I was a little bummed with that. And I wasn't really sure. I bounced around from job to job. I was doing landscaping for quite some time with my dad. I also worked in banquet halls. I did accounting for a year. So I definitely tried a whole bunch of jobs and nothing really did it for me. And I got to talking with some friends that kind of brought up the whole Caribbean med school thing as an option. And I decided to look a little more into it. Ended up doing my own research, talked to one of my colleagues, excuse me, who suggested MUA as one of the schools. And just reading a lot online, on blogs, on various forums where there's a lot of med schools that exchange ideas. You're able to find a lot of information, and it kind of led me down to the big four, big five that had statewide licensing, which are, AUC, St. George, MUA, SABA, all those. And I'm sure I'm missing a couple, but from a financial standpoint and from the fact that MUA had good results in terms of their match list every year, they managed to get people into competitive specialties. Also, were able to get people back to Canada, which I wasn't sure where I wanted to be, of course, starting off. So I kind of went ahead, applied to MUA, got in, and the rest was history, I guess. So I think what did it for me was just reading up on a lot of forums and hearing these positive things that people had to say about the school, and going to their open houses. I think it's important to take it upon yourself to do a lot of research before you fully commit to a program, because you are going to be spending a whole bunch of time and a whole bunch of money that you want to make sure that you're not making the wrong decision for yourself. So anyways, after that spiel, the administrative team at MUA wanted me to talk about some questions that they frequently get from students. And of course, I encourage anyone who's watching, or anyone who watches later on, to send out some questions. I'd be happy to answer them whenever. And yeah, so in terms of, so the first question, I'll just move on to the first question. Can you tell us how you first heard about MUA? So like I mentioned earlier, I had heard about MUA through a friend who kind of pushed me to apply. And I did a lot of research on my own. And there's, like I mentioned earlier, there's lots of forums, there's lots of information out there to sift through, which can definitely guide your decision. And having a good idea of what to expect before you actually enter the med school is definitely a good place to start. I think being aware of the costs, and not just financially, but also on, you're going to be away from family, especially for people that haven't lived away from family. It's a bit of an adjustment period, which kind of leads to the next question as well. But it's something that you want to have a clear idea of how everything looks like before you enter it, and what the process is like as well, and how long it actually is going to take. But that's pretty much my 2 cents on that. I kind of just jumped on this opportunity, and I thought, why not, and definitely don't regret the decision. But okay, so next question was, what was your adjustment like when you came to the island? So there's definitely an adjustment period when it comes to moving to a new place, like anywhere. It's a foreign place. You're not sure about a lot of things, how everything works out, where the stores are, what the hours of the stores are like, a whole bunch of things, right? And I think what made it a little bit easier for me was creating a bit of a sense of community between my fellow classmates. You find some good people that you want to spend time with, and you definitely form some really good bonds with people over time, because it's a highly stressful environment that you kind of are all going through, and you're kind of all suffering through. So it kind of makes the burden a little easier to bear. So it's nice to have to go through this with other people and knowing that you're not alone. Because you could talk about your problems back home to your family and stuff, or to your loved ones, and I'm sure they will empathize with you, but they will never truly understand what you're going through unless they're actually experiencing the same thing or have experienced it in the past. So I think, and back to another topic was, in terms of people that have never really lived away from home, I think it's difficult. I think, having family and friends to rely on, especially back home, Skyping with them kind of helps you cope through it. But I think it's really important to develop some good friendships, because, we'd be on a block-based system where every 2 or 3 weeks we'd have exams. We would learn new materials, and then at the end of the 2 or 3 weeks, we would have exams. And after that, you'd have a weekend to kind of just relax and do whatever you wanted. So it'd be like, we'd be in the library for 2 or 3 weeks, and then that weekend we'd all go out, go drink some beer at the beach, or have some good food. So it really made it a lot easier, having that continuous, I guess, routine, especially with your good friends, was good, was definitely helpful. And it comes with time. The more time you spend and the more work that you put in, the easier it does get. Yeah. So next question is, how was your basic sciences experience? So basic sciences is a pretty intensive experience. I know it's very cliche, but people say it's like trying to drink from a fire hydrant. And while the volume is very impressive, the volume of material that is, it's a lot to digest. It's very easy to be overwhelmed by it and kind of lose sight of the bigger picture. But that's when, trying to take it one step at a time, trying to ask for advice from your senior classmates, trying to get help in office hours or going to TA hours or whatever. You got to do your best to try to make a good dent in whatever information you're learning at the time. And overall, I think it's all about the consistency of it. Putting in work every single day it makes it a lot easier. And I think that's what's key. I think falling too behind in your coursework is it's very difficult to catch up. So you always want to stay afloat. You always want to make sure that you're putting in work every day. And I think my favorite course, for example, was neuro or psych. I think both of them were mixed together when I was taking it. At least I'm not sure how it is now. There was a large amount of information, probably the heaviest course that there was at MUA at the time. And to learn about the brain and the nervous system and how it all functions was really interesting. And I also found myself kind of finding the concepts really cool. I ended up TAing neuro for 2 semesters, and I kind of got to appreciate the intricacies of the field, and trying to see how tough it is for some people to understand. It's just trying to lighten that course load for them helped a lot. But basic sciences was interesting. I think overall, it's all about the consistency. You just have to put in the work, and the rest will take care of itself. every single day, little by little. And next question is, how did MUA prepare you for step 1 exam? Did you feel well prepared? How did you do? So I think MUA does a fine job at preparing you for the step 1 exam. They do provide you with a good foundation of knowledge that, is universally taught everywhere. But I think the point of med school is that it is self-taught to a large extent, and finding it within yourself to kind of push yourself as much as you can to excel and learn the information well is very important. The school can only do so much for you. But with that being said, I think MUA does a fine job with it. They provide everything that you need to learn, and it's on you at the end of the day whether you want to run with that or not. Depends how competitive you want to be, of course. And like most other Caribbean schools, there is a comprehensive basic sciences exam, which you must actually pass before you're eligible to write step 1. And it seemed like a behemoth of an exam leading up to it. I know we'd all talk about it for Med 1 and Med 5, and we joke around about how we fail it and whatever, but I know a large majority of my friends passed, and it's definitely not an easy exam. I know I walked out feeling a little jolted after that, but in hindsight, I didn't think it was bad. I think a large component of it has to do with your how well you can cope with the stress and anxiety caused by such an important exam, I guess. But I think the comprehensive exam is a great thing. It kind of prevents you from writing the step 1 without being ready. I think the biggest mistake some people make is writing the step 1 too soon without properly getting ready for it. So I think it's important that it is kind of like a hurdle to pass in order to make sure that you do well on step 1, because step 1 is probably the most important exam of your life. So overall, I think step 1 was not bad at all. I did quite well in step 1 and step 2. I think, it's all about consistency. Like I said earlier, putting in the work every single day, you will reap the results eventually. So the next question is, how has the MUA clinical team worked with you to customize your rotations? So prior to actually getting off the island, I believe it was either at the end of Med 4 or Med 5, the clinical team does come to you and meet with all the students before they even start core rotations to try to figure out what you want to go into, what kind of field you're interested in, what geographic location you'd like to be interested in the future. And they kind of cater your core rotations based off that. We do have a whole bunch of cores that we could do in New York. There's some in OKC. I'm not sure if Baltimore is still a place. Louisiana. I know there's new ones in California now. So, and I believe there's a family medicine in Florida. So there's a whole bunch of places that we do have that are potential locations for people to do core rotations. So I think it's important that they do sit with you and try to figure out where you want to end up and what you want to do later on, and kind of cater that to your preferences. So I think that's good. And next question is, which has been your favorite rotation so far and why? So I think for me, there's so many different rotations, and they're so different in the way that you approach them and the interactions that you have with patients. But I think internal medicine was really interesting for me. I think dealing with the incredibly complex patients with so many comorbidities, and they're on like 10, 15 different drugs. So trying to juggle everything at the same time is really interesting and very stressful at times, but very rewarding as well. And coming up with differentials, trying to find the best way to treat them, doing your own research on the side, discussing the cases with other people, trying to figure out the best solution to the problem. And it's almost like solving a puzzle. And I think I found it very rewarding in that sense. And Yeah, and I think another one was surgery that I really enjoyed. I loved following the patients from their initial encounter, where you actually decide to go through with surgery, and then actually following them into surgery, and then post-op as well, and seeing how they do, and seeing how your manipulation of their bodies literally um, positively affects them later on. And I remember a case of an elderly woman that we had recently diagnosed her with colorectal carcinoma based on biopsies that we had done through colonoscopies. Um, we ended up performing like a very rigorous 6 hour, 6 to 7 or 8 hours, I can't remember exactly, surgery on her, in which we removed a large part of her large intestine, as well as many, many lymph nodes, and then had to re-anastomose everything and give her a little pouch for a couple of weeks until everything healed up. And it was pretty intense. And she handled the procedure very well, and there was no complications at all. And once we received the pathology report, um, stating that all the lymph nodes were negative, which means that no metastases were present, and as well as the colorectal carcinoma, the mass itself was resected out with appropriate margins, which basically means that more likely than not, we had cured her of her cancer. And, just seeing how thankful and how good this was for her future health was really rewarding. I think, people enjoy other things. I also liked how in family medicine, there were patients that I saw over the span of a couple of weeks, multiple times, and they would remember you, and you would be able to build some rapport with them, and kind of talking about their life, joking about different things, hearing about their struggles. It was really interesting to connect in that deep of a level. So I think different rotations offer different opportunities to learn and engage and figure things out and what you might like later on in life. So I think that's it's really important to try to give yourself a wide variety of experiences, because once it comes time to actually decide on residency, it's difficult to actually make that decision, and I don't think I'm ready to make that decision right now. But I kind of have to be. It's almost June now, and applications start in September, so I kind of have to figure it out. So next question. Have you moved to different locations? Do you think it's a plus or minus? So I think, and I'm assuming it's based on the rotations. I definitely have moved from place to place. In terms of my core rotations, I finished internal medicine and surgery in Houma, Louisiana, and that was for third year. So core rotations are in the third year. There's 5 core rotations. I finished IM and surgery, like I said, in Houma. And then I moved to Brooklyn, where I completed OBGYN, pediatrics, and psychiatry at 2 different hospitals. And for electives, still moving around. But I think it has its positives and negatives. I think moving around is great because you experience different patient populations. It's very different dealing with a patient, say, in the South compared to New York. Very different style of dress, very different style of speech. So it's good to experience that. I think it makes you a better clinician, being able to converse with different people from different races, ethnicities, religions, all that. I think it's really important to familiarize yourself with that. The only minus that I would say with moving around would be that it is hard to move from place to place. It does take some getting used to. It's a new environment. You don't know many people. The hospital feels foreign. So it's definitely something that takes some getting used to. So it makes it a little more difficult. And unfortunately, by the time you feel like you're have some sort of familiarity and comfort level with a place, it's usually time to move on. So that's kind of not the best thing, but I think the positives outweigh the negatives. I think it's also positive to do to be moving around just based on the fact that you want to increase your chances at exposing yourself to different programs because it is more likely for you to get an interview once residency applications come through if you have rotated at a specific place. So it's definitely important in that regard. Now on to the next question. How has the MUA clinical team been involved with you on a regular basis as you go through your clinicals? So I think the MUA clinical team, they've been really important in terms of steering me into different programs and different electives that fit me best and what my plans are for the future. They're definitely instrumental in trying to get all your paperwork in order to even apply to some of these electives for fourth year. There's many forms that you have to sign, a lot of documentation, a lot of different things that you have to provide the hospitals, and each hospital is kind of different in what they ask for. So the whole process is a little overwhelming. And I think, having them in my corner, in our corner, I guess, is definitely a positive thing. Definitely would be a lot harder to get all that stuff done without them, that's for sure. Next question is, have you begun working with the MUA clinical team on your elective rotations? So yes, so like I mentioned earlier on, I finished my course already. That was in third year. I finished step 2, and now I'm currently doing elective rotations for fourth year. So in terms of setting up electives, in order to set up your electives, you have to make sure to start early. Start sending out emails to programs that you might be interested in applying to, different programs within different specialties. So cater your electives in terms of where you would potentially want to match, as well as, trying to get a varied experience for fourth year, trying to experience a little bit of everything. So it's definitely important to start early, though. I think that's key because these programs only offer limited seats to limited medical schools sometimes. So it's really hard to actually get rotations at spots from time to time. So it's important to start early to be the first in line in case there is availability. So once you do that, I think MUA kind of helps you traverse your way through that. And I just finished my internal medicine sub-internship as well as my cardiology elective in Homa again. And I'm currently in Binghamton, like I mentioned earlier, finishing an ambulatory family medicine rotation. It's been great. It's been a good experience so far. Fourth year definitely gives you a little more leeway as to how you want to spend your time a little better. You're not worried as much about taking exams and reading too much into any one specific thing. You kind of just enjoy your time at the hospital and kind of immerse yourself fully in the rotation, trying to make connections, trying to learn on the job. All those things are important. So I think fourth year definitely opens the door to more clinical experiences for sure. And I am doing surgery sub-I in Baltimore next week starting. So I do have to move around a little bit this weekend. It's going to be a little hectic, but you kind of get used to it. It's never easy, but it's something that you kind of just have to do. And it really ends up not being bad. There's a couple of days in the beginning of each rotation where you're kind of just feeling things out and seeing how everything is and how everyone is, how they're responding to you and how you should behave. So there's always a little bit of a learning curve with each rotation, but taking it one step at a time is all you can do. And, just being positive, being present, being, I guess, as energetic as you can be, because we're all tired all the time pretty much. But, as long as you're well caffeinated and getting a decent amount of sleep, you should be doing fine. And I have a whole bunch scheduled. I have one in Canada coming up as well. So there's a lot of opportunities. You just have to make sure to start early in terms of applying to electives and get the ball rolling there. And I know it's difficult because in third year you're expected to be in the hospital from like 8 to 9 hours, maybe more sometimes a day, and then also study for your shelf exams and also get ready for step 2. And while you're doing that, you also have to do these, send out these emails to try to get these electives scheduled as well. but it's important to push yourself because it becomes very hard later on to find electives to pursue if it gets too late. So I hope this Q&A has been helpful. I know that there's a whole bunch of stuff that I probably barely touched on, but if anyone has any questions or concerns or anything at all, you know, feel free to write a comment. I will eventually check back and hopefully write some responses. But my biggest piece of advice is to make sure that you want this because it is a long journey, and I don't think a lot of people do realize how tough it can be at times and how rewarding it actually can be at times. So I think really asking yourself why you want to do this and what you hope to achieve, and having you know, realistic expectations for yourself is important. And at the end of the day, you know, sometimes you just have to take the plunge. I never really thought that I would enter med school until I kind of was like, okay, it's going to happen. I was on the airplane, I was on the way there, and it just kind of worked out, you know, having that faith in yourself, trying your best to stay happy and connect to other people and keep connections back home. You know, it's a holistic approach, like many doctors like to say nowadays. You got to keep yourself happy. Make sure to always try to create positive coping mechanisms, whether that is working out or spending time with friends and family, having a good meal, watching a movie, stuff like that. You know, it's important to be happy while you're doing this, because you're the only person that can make you happy. No one else can. And it's important to have a balance in life as well. But I think I'm jumping from topic to topic, maybe confusing everyone. So I think I'll leave it at that. And like I said earlier, if you have any questions or concerns, I'd be happy to address them. Just leave a comment. And I hope this was helpful to some people. And I'd love to hear any feedback as well. All right. Thank you.